Welcome once again to Auto Mundial, the weekly home of all the latest motoring news and reviews. This week, Skoda gives its all-electric Enyaq a motorsport flavoured twist.
Plus, Ferrari lifts the covers on its latest Halo Hypercar, but is it worthy of its lineage?
We've also got a pair of luxurious off-road ready SUVs from the United States of America.
That's all coming up. First though, the news.
And it's bad news for Chinese automaker BYD in its bid to take on Western manufacturers here in the UK market. Following its most recent round of safety testing, Enyaq has awarded the BYD Atto 3 family SUV with the lowest driver assistance rating ever. According to the car safety assessor, the model's adaptive cruise control system switches off steering support after a prolonged period of inactivity whilst maintaining speed. Enyaq points out that in the unlikely case of an unresponsive driver, this clear safety concern puts vehicle occupants at risk. The report also highlights a difficulty to identify road signs and unfavourable performance in collision avoidance and system failure tests, leaving the Atto 3 with an overall vehicle assistance rating of 55%. Following successful crash tests in 2022, the Chinese SUV still retains a 5-star safety rating. However, Enyaq's overall ratings will incorporate driver assistance scores from 2026, at which point expect to see the BYD Atto 3 lose its top ranking unless the Chinese manufacturer can update its cabin systems.
A few weeks ago, we took a look at Volvo's freshest SUV, the XC90. But the combustion edition now also has an all-electric twin in the form of the EX90, now the Swedish manufacturer's top-of-the-range unit. Visually, the two cars look near identical, though where the standard SUV gets a grille and striking Volvo logo, the EV features a flat face as well as this taxi roof sign looking bulge housing the sensors required for yet to be rolled out higher level of self-driving tech. Well, it's inside where the new EX90 comes alive, however, thanks to a traditionally Swedish minimalist design and an emphasis on sustainable materials. Indeed, much of the steel, aluminium and, importantly, plastic used to put the car together is recycled. A nice swooping dashboard dominates the front half of the cabin, holding a centrally mounted 14.5-inch touchscreen running new Google built-in infotainment software, replacing the frustratingly fiddly old system. You can select the new electric SUV in a variety of configurations, but at its fullest, this is a 7-seat model utilising thin back seats for optimal legroom. For ease of use, each row of seating can be folded with a single hand, so fear not when all alone with a handful of shopping. Though despite all the helpful additions, rear passenger space has seemingly not been a top priority during the new car's development, with lighting being far from welcoming behind the first row of seats. Currently only available in all-wheel drive form, the EX90 gets 402 brake horsepower from a pair of batteries powered by a 111 kilowatt-hour battery. If that doesn't sound like enough for you, the EX90 is also available in performance specification with over 500 bhp. Volvo claims either model will provide up to 370 miles of range, while charging from 10 to 80% is accomplished in less than 30 minutes, though expect UK winters to dramatically reduce the battery's efficiency.
not everyone has almost £100,000 to spare on a glamorous electric 7-seat SUV, especially when there are several alternatives available for far less than Volvo's new range-topping EV. One of which is the Kia EV9, the South Korean manufacturer's largest electric vehicle, also welcoming 7 occupants in modest comfort for a more reasonable £65,000. Inside, the top Kia gets a simplistic cabin made to feel nice and spacious thanks to enlarged windows and an overall lack of protruding elements to note. A pair of 12.3-inch displays sit behind the wheel, connected to a total of 14 speakers for a premium infotainment feel. Meanwhile, the flat floor allows for good legroom to all 3 rows of seats, whilst the middle row is available with either a bench or swivel captain's chairs for 7 or 6-seat layouts. Each row gets its own USB-C charging port and individual climate control zone. A 333-litre boot in the back is larger than the Volvo and sits alongside a further storage compartment in the rear. Outside, the EV9 gets similar styling cues to its smaller sibling, the EV6 Coupe, with its slick LED head and tail light signature, but adopting a slightly more rugged persona according to Kia. More bolstered lines enhance a muscular look. Just one battery option is available with the EV9, a 99.8 kilowatt-hour unit, powering either rear-only or all-wheel drive layouts, depending on your trim level. For optimal range, the Air model gets rear-wheel drive and 200 brake horsepower for around 350 miles of range. Go for a more decked-out specification, and an extra motor on the front axle bumps power up to 378 brake horsepower and drops expected range down to 313 miles. Similar figures to the EX90.
Ultimately, with its highly luxurious cabin, the Volvo EX90 does sit in a class of its own in the full-size electric SUV market. However, on paper at least, it does very little more than the Kia EV9. So if all you need is a family car for daily use, we would recommend saving your pennies unless you really want the social status and added niceties of Volvo's latest release.
The first full EV to emerge from Czech car manufacturer Skoda, the Enyaq, has become a go-to in a class typically fighting off models offering far less for more money. In the past, we have found a particular fondness for the model's Lorin and Clement trim levels, decorating the cabin with soft leather and nice design pieces. Though even in its most basic specification, the Enyaq is a good-looking car both in and out and offers decent mileage from its range of batteries. But now the mad scientists at Skoda have pushed the electric coupe SUV to a whole new level of wacky with this, the Enyaq RS Race. Shedding over 300 kilos from the, dare we say, regular Enyaq Coupe VRS and gaining a collection of motorsport-inspired modifications, this is an EV ready for the racetrack, and it's clearly quite capable. Aside from the evident aero adornments front and rear, the racy model also gets tuned shock absorbers, a roll cage and a lower, wider stance, resulting in a stiffer, more agile chassis. Large 20-inch wheels complete the extreme look of the car, clearly ready to take on its nearest rally stage. Under the eye-catching improvements, the race edition gets all the same gubbins as the regular VRS model, including the 82 kilowatt-hour battery, 335 brake horsepower from a pair of motors, and 112 miles per hour top speed. But dropping considerable weight, it will now complete the 0 to 62 dash in under 5 seconds. This Enyaq RS Race may be but a mere concept. but using lighter materials, Skoda suggests it may provide an insight into weight-saving practices for future production cars. And in a world of two-ton Goliaths, that is an exciting prospect to us.
After the break, Ferrari adds a new member to its lineup of most exclusive hypercars.
Welcome back. Coming up, a special edition Volkswagen ID.3 GTX with purple paint and seats made from coats.
High-riding, boxy and appealing to the celebrities of this world some 20 years ago, the Cadillac Escalade kicked off its own segment in the early 2000s. But nowadays, the large SUV class is both a highly competitive market and intensely popular among American consumers looking for the next word in luxury. But for many, that taste of the fancier things in life needs a side of rugged competence. With that in mind, this is the GMC Yukon. Just as large and just as squared off as any other luxury large SUV on the market, the Yukon also gets a sturdier exterior design compiling muscular bulges, bumpers with added reinforcement, and in this AT4 specification, nice girthy tyres for tackling rocky tracks. But that adventurous personality from the outside is replaced by a sleek, modern and opulent cabin featuring all the latest tech and nice soft materials. At the centre of it all is this 16.8-inch touchscreen for all your infotainment needs, surrounded by chunky climate control buttons. Rear passengers also get their own air conditioning for a tri-zone system, whilst a massive sunroof provides light to the whole cabin. Front and rear seats are available with heating and ventilation built in, whilst Bose speakers come as standard in the top Denali trim level. Nice leather with contrasting stitching is available should you so choose, whilst the driver gets a nice simple steering wheel in front of a driver and heads-up display with assist-like thermal imaging for spotting wild animals on your adventures into the wilderness. And with a pair of V8s to choose from, the Yukon will surely make any off-road driving look easy. The range kicks off with a 355 brake horsepower, 5.3-litre V8, whilst high trim levels get 420 horses from a 6.2-litre unit as standard. For those so inclined, a diesel Duramax straight 6 provides 305 bhp and all the torque you could want for trailer towing duties. In fact, this particular model will tow well above 3.5 tonnes.
For some, even that stonking figure simply will not do. But fear not, as the blue oval has all the capabilities you could ever require from an SUV. The recently refreshed Ford Expedition gets a twin-turbo V6 in either 400 or 440 brake horsepower denomination and will now tow up to 4.3 tonnes. Drop the trailer and it will hit 62 from a standstill in just 4.9 seconds, a tremendous time for a whopping SUV. The model's 2025 updates don't just make it a brute, however, and it gets the looks to match its brawn. A redesigned front end incorporates a light bar similar to other America-only Fords, while just like the GMC, Expedition gets a large, tech-focused interior. But with a very Ford design, there's no denying that the Expedition's luxury element is somewhat lost in translation. Somewhat tacky chrome air vents adorn the dashboard that features a 24-inch dual display. Closer to the centre console is a smaller touchscreen for navigating menus, all of which runs on Google's infotainment system that we do like. Third-row seating aboard the Expedition is spacious, as is the case for the first and second rows, though it's only the forward-most occupants that get access to niceties like massaging seats.
neither quite matching the segment's inaugurator in the luxury department. Both the GMC Yukon and Ford Expedition dramatically undercut the Cadillac Escalade's near $90,000 starting price. In fact, the Yukon is available from $69,000, whilst the Blue Oval is once again the value for money option, starting just above $63,500. But really, value for money is hardly the luxury SUV class appeal, and so we do quite like the idea of a GMC Yukon in bolstered 84 specification.
One of Volkswagen's first attempts at a sporty, all-electric model, the ID.3 GTX does seem to lack connection to arguably the original VW hot hatch, the Golf GTI. Indeed, looking through the standard model, there are few allusions to its inspiration and lineage, something we would like to see. However, the German manufacturer has unveiled a version that corrects the new hot EV's flaw, harking back to a memorable edition of the Golf GTI. This is the Volkswagen ID.3 GTX Fire and Ice, a one-off creation developed with German fashion brand Enyaq, paying tribute to the famed Mark II Golf GTI Fire and Ice. Much like the original of its name, this one-off is packed full of eye-catching details reflecting the hot and cold theme. Immediately you will notice the triple-layer paint aptly named Electric Purple that changes shade in the sun. That is combined with the Enyaq Fire and Ice range's logo embedded into the finish. Flaming red detailing on the model's lines and badges complete the popping colour combination, whilst the interior is equally full to the brim with styling cues you wouldn't dare select on a production model. First are a pair of what appear to be puffer jackets in the seats, making for what we can only assume is a less than comfortable seating position. Red and blue details on the seat backs, as well as hot and cold symbols on the pedals, are further hints to the car's fire and ice theme. Depending on how you see this creation, you will be thankful that the Fire and Ice edition is not set for mass market rollout, instead remaining a one-off creation. But if a taste of electrified hot hatchery does tickle your fancy, the regular ID.3 GTX is certainly among the best in class. Just don't expect quite as much personality as this showy design.
Some of the most famous models in history, Ferrari's lineage of hypercars is enough to make the most motoring enthusiasts froth at the mouth and break out in sweats with uncontrollable levels of excitement. These Rosso Corsa icons bearing the prancing horse include such memorable names as the F40, Enzo and LaFerrari. But now there's a new one, tracing its nomenclature all the way back to the 1980s. But the Ferrari F80 is far from a throwback under the shell with a hyper-modern powertrain. What you're looking at here is the 3-litre V6 engine loosely based on the manufacturer's Le Mans winning hypercar's motor that gives this road-going model a whopping 900 brake horsepower. Adding to the total are a pair of electric motors, one on the front axle and a second in the gearbox, making for 1200 total bhp. Luckily, those ponies go to all four wheels through an 8-speed dual-clutch gearbox, keeping you out of harm's way. Certainly no loud screamer nor a widowmaker, the F80 will have to find new ways of attracting a crowd. Active suspension, clever aerodynamics producing a ton of downforce at 155 miles per hour, and high-tech carbon fibre monocoque chassis elements are all bits of kit to impress the statisticians. But what will truly interest supercar fans are the F80's looks. It adopts several design features harking back to old models, from the F50's square-off rear end to the Daytona's headlight shape, and even a stripped-out carbon-clad cabin akin to the F40. It's certainly a good-looking car, but boxy dimensions do enhance its visual size to extreme proportions. Despite its growth spurt though, Ferrari's latest hypercar doesn't exactly get a plush cabin. Forget the severe lack of storage inside, this unit barely even gets a passenger seat. From behind the wheel, in a hugging bucket, your neighbour gets an insert moulded into the chassis and the odd cushion. Though that does match up nicely with the rest of the space with its bare bones, back to basics, lightweight approach. All the weight saving helps the F80 hit 62 from a standstill in just 2.15 seconds, while top speed rests at 217 miles per hour. But still tipping the scales at 1.5 tons, there are several models on more effective diets than the latest prancing horse. We look forward to seeing how this new range-topping Ferrari performs on track in the new year, so stay tuned for all the action then.
That's all we have time for this week, but do tune in next time as the Porsche 911 in its most recent facelifted form gets a new range-topping variant.